Okay, so let's dive into something that, on the surface, just doesn't make any sense. We all know India is a powerhouse in the digital world, right? It's pushing hard for online education for every single person. And yet, its own tax policy is actually penalizing digital learning. It's a huge paradox, and in this explainer, we're going to break down exactly how it works and why it matters.
First things first, let's just set the stage here. The absolute bedrock of India's digital revolution is the cost of data. And I mean, just look at these numbers. It's not a small difference, it's dramatic. In India, you can get a gigabyte of data for just 9 cents. The global average? Over $2.50. This super cheap data is supposed to be the highway delivering knowledge to over 1 billion people.
And that brings us right to the heart of the matter. It's the core question of this whole explainer. If the highway is practically free for everyone to use, why in the world is there a toll booth specifically for the knowledge that's traveling down it? It's a direct contradiction, and that's exactly what we're here to unpack.
So, to really get this, you have to see it as a kind of tale of two ministries, each with completely different goals. On one side, you've got the Ministry of Education, pushing full steam ahead into a digital future. But on the other side, you have the Ministry of Finance, with a tax policy that seems, well, kind of stuck in the past.
And this digital push isn't just some side project. It is absolutely central to the country's entire national strategy. The government's whole national education policy is built on the idea of using digital platforms to get way more people into higher education. I mean, trying to reach those goals with only physical schools is pretty much impossible. Digital is the only way forward.
So who does this really affect the most? It's not the folks in the big cities with multiple devices. Nope. It's the 400 million and rapidly growing internet users in rural areas. For so many of them, a shared family smartphone is their one and only library. It's their classroom. And this tax policy, it hits them directly.
Okay, so let's get into the actual mechanics of this so-called knowledge tax. And this is where it gets a little technical, but trust me, it's fascinating. It all boils down to one simple but incredibly important question. Is an ebook a good or is it a service?
And this slide right here just illustrates the problem perfectly. You buy a printed book. It's classified as a good, and it has a 0% tax, a nil GST rate. The idea is that knowledge shouldn't be taxed. But an ebook, the exact same words, the same knowledge, well, that's classified as a service, and bam, it gets hit with an 18% tax. It's the same content, just a totally different tax bill because of the format.
So why on earth is it a service? It's because of this one kind of clunky acronym, OIDAR. It's a tax category that was really designed for things like Netflix, Spotify, and online gaming. By lumping ebooks in with all of that, the tax code is basically treating them not as knowledge products, but as just another form of digital entertainment. All right, now let's see how this actually plays out in a real world. Because this isn't just some abstract legal debate happening in an office somewhere. It creates some truly strange and frankly counterproductive situations for both readers and creators of educational content.
Now, the government did try to address this, but the fix itself is, well, it's just bizarre. If you take a physical book that already exists and you just scan it into a simple PDF, it gets a lower concessional tax rate of 5%. Okay, a little better, but this is where the logic completely falls apart.
Because look what happens next. If an educator or an author creates a modern, innovative, interactive ebook, the kind with embedded videos, quizzes, things that simply can't exist in print, it's considered born digital. And because it doesn't have a print version to be a copy of, it gets slapped with the full 18% tax. The law literally punishes innovation in education.
The courts, though, have offered a much simpler way to look at this. In a really important ruling, the Delhi High Court established what's called a functional test. And the question is just beautiful in its simplicity. Does the thing impart knowledge? If the answer is yes, then it's a book. End of story. It's a logical principle that just cuts right through all the complexity of the tax code.
So when you add it all up, who's really getting hurt the most by this? It's that rural student trying to study on a shared family phone. It's the professional trying to upskill with online courses. It's the author who wants to create an amazing digital-first textbook. It's the medical student who needs a really expensive digital reference book. These are the very people that India's big digital education push is supposed to be helping.
So you might be wondering, is this just an Indian problem? Well, no, not at all. A lot of countries have dealt with this very same question. But the global trend is now moving in a very different direction, which is making India's policy look more and more like an outlier.
Just take a look at this timeline.
Back in 2018, the entire European Union changed its rules to let member countries treat ebooks and print books the same for tax purposes. Then, in 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, the UK completely got rid of its 20% tax on e-publications. Why? Because they recognized how crucial they were for remote learning. Other major economies have already solved this.
And the big idea behind this global shift is called fiscal neutrality. It's a core economic principle that basically says the tax system shouldn't be in the business of picking winners and losers based on format. Reading is reading. Learning is learning. It doesn't matter if it's on a page or on a screen.
And you know, there's another really powerful argument here: the environment. In a country like India, where so many people are reading on smartphones they already own, the extra carbon cost of downloading an ebook is practically zero. But the current tax policy? It actually accidentally favors the much more carbon-intensive option of printing books on paper and shipping them all over the country.
So what's the solution to all this? Well, the good news is there's a really clear path to fixing this paradox, a way to finally get India's tax policy in sync with its incredible digital ambitions.
The recommendations are actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, immediately get rid of that born digital penalty. Let all ebooks get that lower 5% rate as a starting point. Step 2, go all the way and adopt fiscal neutrality. Move ebooks to the 0% category, exactly like printed books. And finally, use that simple, common-sense functional test from the courts. If it teaches you something, it's a book. Period. This summary table just brings it all home. It really does. When you put all the key metrics side by side, the tax rate, the cost to distribute, the environmental impact, the case for parity, for treating them the same, is just overwhelming. The proposed change simply aligns the tax treatment of ebooks with their actual costs and their actual benefit to society.
And that leaves us with one final, really powerful question to think about. After looking at all of this, is India really just taxing a digital product, or is it actually taxing its own progress?